Second, this is Urdu Ghar forum. So most of our programs are in Urdu, but today is an exception because of Dr. Basheer Ahmed's. His book is in English, and we have some non-Urdu speaking people also in our meeting today. So we'll be conducting this meeting in English, and I hope everybody understands English here. The other thing is we have certain rules and procedure in place. We have this book launching ceremony of Dr. Basheer's book, but we have certain rules that we have to read in before every meeting. These rules are in Urdu, and I'm going to be reading them in Urdu. I can summarize them for you. Basically, it tells people to be respectful of other people and not to interfere or interrupt them when they are talking. And it is that we are not going to be insulting people or mocking them. We can, of course, be critical about the work. We are not going to be discussing any person who is not in the meeting, right? So we have this as basic manners and things that we need to take care of, and that everybody would get a chance to speak. So with that, I'm going to start the Urdu Ghar, the principles of Urdu Ghar meetings, okay? And this is going to be in Urdu. And after I'm done that, I'm going to ask Dr. Amir Suleiman to go ahead and introduce us with the writer, Dr. Basheer Ahmed, and also the president of today's meeting, which is going to be Dr. Aslam Syed, and Professor Hassan Abbas is our chief guest. So Dr. Amir will be doing all the introductions. So with that, let me start the Urdu Ghar rules, all right? उर्दू घाट डायरेक्ट के तमाम प्रोग्राम दर्ज झेल रहनुमा असूलों के रोशनी में तरतीब दिए जाएंगे। उर्दू घर के हर प्रोग्राम के आगाज में शुरुका को इन रहनुमा असूलों से आगाह किया जाएगा। उर्दू घर का हर प्रोग्राम मुअय्यन वक्त शुरू होगा और मुअय्यन वक्त पर इख्तिताम पजीर होगा। हर मौजू पर हर शरीक को इज़हार ख्याल करने की दरख्वास्त की जाएगी। हर शरीक को एक मुतय्यन वक्त के लिए ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा 5 मिनट होगा इज़हार ख्याल करने की गुजारिश की जाएगी। हर प्रोग्राम का एक सदर होगा और सदर महफिल के दाएं तरफ से बारी बारी इज़हार ख्याल किया जाएगा। अलबत्ता वर्चुअल मीटिंग में या मजाजी नशीत में शुरका की आमद की तरतीबी खिताब की तरतीब भी होगी। तमाम शुरका के बारी बारी इज़हार ख्याल करने के बाद अगर कोई शरीक किसी नुक्ते की वजाहत करना चाहेगा तो 2 मिनट में वजाहत करने की गुजारिश की जाएगी और वो सदर नशीन की इजाज़त से इज़हार ख्याल करेंगे। इज़हार ख्याल को मौजूद तक महदूद रखने और नुक्तावार बयान करने की गुजारिश की जाएगी। किसी शरीक के इज़हार ख्याल के दौरान शुरका से मुअद्दबाना गुजारिश है कि वो क़ता कलामी से हत्तुल इम्कान गुरेज करें। चूंकि प्रोग्राम वक्त पर शुरू हो जाएगा, लिहाजा मुमकिन है देर से तशरीफ लाने वालों को इज़हार ख्याल का मौका न मिल सके, जिसके लिए हम पेशगी माज़रत ख़्वाह हैं। इज़हार ख्याल के दौरान किसी भी किस्म की इल्ज़ाम तराशी, तंज़ तशनी और बहस व तमहीज़ से गुरेज करके सिर्फ अपना नुक्ता नज़र मुक़र्रर वक्त में पेश करने की गुजारिश की जाएगी। उर्दू घर का दफ्तर किसी भी सियासी और मजहबी जमात की सरगर्मी का मरकज़ कतई नहीं होगा, लिहाजा इस नौ की गुफ्तगू से भी हर प्रोग्राम में परहेज़ किया जाएगा। हर प्रोग्राम में शिरकत सिर्फ उर्दू घर की दावत से मशरूत होगी। किसी भी प्रोग्राम में किसी भी बुरी शोहरत रखने वाले फ़र्ज को मदू करने से गुरेज किया जाएगा। उर्दू घर के प्रोग्रामों की तमाम सरगर्मियाँ इखलाकी हदूद की पाबंद होंगी। सबके अहले खाना सबके लिए लायक एहतराम है, लिहाजा गुफ्तगू के दौरान किसी के अहले खाना के बाबत किसी भी मनफी राय से गुरेज किया जाएगा। जो शख्स महफिल मौजूद नहीं, उसके बारे में मनफी राय से गुरेज किया जाएगा। अलबत्ता उसके फ़न पर सेहतमंद और मज़बूत गुफ्तगू की जा सकती है। किसी भी मरहूम के बारे में किसी भी मनफी राय से गुरेज किया जाएगा। नॉर्थ अमेरिका में रहने वाले मुख्तलिफ ज़ुबानों में बात करते हैं, लिहाजा हमें उनकी गुलाबी उर्दू इतनी ही अजीज़ होगी जितनी उन्हें हमारी उन्नाबी अंग्रेज़ी है। प्रोग्राम के अख्ताम पर अगर सदर महफिल अपनी बात जारी रखना चाहें तो मुअय्यन वक्त के बाद भी महदूद वक्त में बात मुकम्मल करेंगे। इस तरह इख्तिलाफ राय की सूरत में उनका फैसला हतमी होगा। उर्दू घर डायरेक्ट के दफ्तर उसके तमाम प्रोग्रामों की कार्रवाई तरजीहन उर्दू ज़बान में होगी। Okay, with those introductions of the rules, so basically I would ask Dr. Amir to introduce to us Dr. Aslam Syed, Professor Abbas, and the writer of the book, Dr. Basheer Ahmed. Dr. Amir.
Thank you very much, Rizwan Bhai. It's a pleasure to introduce the panel today. We have Dr. Basheer Ahmed. Dr. Basheer Ahmed is from Pakistan. He did, and Dr. Basheer, correct me, I'm just going with my memory, but Dr. Basheer was a professor at UT Southwestern and also the program director. And he was the trendsetter And after him, there are many others of his students who are professors at UT Southwestern. Or I would like to describe Dr. Basheer as someone, as Iqbal has said, पुख्ता तर है गर्दिश पे हम सजा में जिंदगी है यही है बेखबर राज़े दवा में जिंदगी. Since I've known him for more than 22 years, he has been leading our community in Dallas in different endeavors. He started Muslim Community Center that serves the indigent population for healthcare needs, and it has only grown over time. Dr. Basheer also has participated in several different endeavors in Dallas, including introducing our community with Islamic history. And what I find very rewarding about his life is that throughout his life, he always tries to do something positive for the community. Till this point, when he has written this book on rise and fall of Muslim civilization, I have attended one of the book launching ceremonies of the book, and I thought that our two guests that I have invited will be a great addition to this topic. It is possible that some people have not read this book, but I think the topic by itself is very intriguing, and we will definitely benefit from Dr. Aslam Syed. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Aslam Syed is a PhD in historiography, and he was invited to Urdu Ghar, and where he introduced himself. He has done his, and Dr. Syed, correct me, he has done his PhD from Columbia University. He has been a professor at Harvard as well as at Columbia and multiple other international institutions. And when I was attending one of the book launching ceremonies of Dr. Basheer's book, I thought Dr. Aslam Syed's knowledge on the subject will be a great asset. Then we have Professor Hassan Abbas, and I'm so proud of our friendship. Professor Hassan Abbas and I went to government college, and we belonged to the same debating circuit at that time. He was a great intellectual, and after finishing college, he went to Central Sphere Services or Pakistan, and then he came to United States. And I think on one of my days, I was sitting watching CNN, and they said that we introduced one of the intellectuals, Dr. Hassan Abbas. And I was pleasantly surprised. It was our Hassan Abbas. Our Urdu Ghar member, Mr. Salman, is a big admirer of Dr. Hassan Abbas. Dr. Hassan Abbas has written several books. The recent one that I found on his Instagram page is on Hazrat Ali bin Abi Talib. And I think with his talks and his topic, it will be a great help when he will discuss on Dr. Basheer's book. Normally in Urdu Ghar, the way we have is that if the main person like Dr. Basheer will have a PowerPoint presentation on his book. After that, I will invite Dr. Hassan Abbas to say a few words on this topic, not necessarily reading the book, but on this topic and his take on it. And then I would recommend Dr. Aslam Syed to talk on this topic, maybe 5 to 10 minutes each. After that, we'll start the conversation. The way it works in Urdu Ghar is that we will ask you guys to either make a comment or ask a question to the panel. You will have 5 minutes. In that 5 minutes, you can either make a comment or you can pose a question to any of the panelists, Dr. Hassan Abbas, Dr. Aslam Syed, or Dr. Basheer, and they will reply to it. We normally finish our meeting by 1:30. However, I think it's a very important meeting. And if Rizwan Hasni Bhai or someone, like Dr. Aslam Syed, want to prolong the hour, they can. You can also declare end of formal meeting at 1:30, and people who want to stay and discuss are more than welcome to stay. So with this, I will very humbly request Dr. Basheer Ahmed to present his book, and then we will take it from there. Also, although we are trying to speak in English, but many Urdu Ghar members speak Urdu. तो अगर आप उर्दू में बात करना चाहें तो हमें उसमें कोई एतराज़ नहीं है. मेरा ख्याल आज की महफिल में कुछ लोग हैं जो उसको हो सकता है ना समझ सकें, मगर क्योंकि ये उर्दू घर है और यहाँ उर्दू में बात भी की जा सकती है, या you can talk bilingually, you can talk in Urdu and then translate in English for the benefit of other members. So Hugh, I'm so sorry, but thanks you very much, but we may be having some conversation in Urdu too. So Bashir भाई, मैं आपसे दरखास्त करूंगा कि अगर आप अपनी किताब का इंट्रोडक्शन दें and then we'll take it from there.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम। मैं सबसे पहले तो बहुत मशकूर हूँ डॉक्टर आमिर सुलेमान एंड मिस्टर रिजवान हसनी कि मुझे ये मौका मिल रहा है कि बड़े दानिशवर इंटेलेक्चुअल्स के साथ थोड़ी सी गुफ्तगू करने का मौका मिल रहा है। मैं प्रेजेंटेशन इंग्लिश में करूँगा क्योंकि उर्दू में ज़रा मुश्किल होगी मुझे। Second thing is I am hard of hearing, so I requested Rizwan Saab to put the questions on the chat, and he will do that. So without any further delay, let me just start. Okay. शुक्रिया बहुत बहुत। मैं जो है कंप्यूटर टेक्नोलॉजी से बिल्कुल नावाफिक हूँ एंड आई अप्रिशिएट रिजवान साहब फॉर हेल्पिंग मी। लेट मी स्टार्ट। औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। As we all know that Muslims were not educated before Islam, and we call that period of Jahiliyyah, and it was Quran which inspired Muslims to explore God's creation and become knowledgeable about the mysteries of this world. And if we just look at the first verse of the Quran revealed, Iqra bismi rabbikal ladzi, it clearly shows that the God has created humans and give them the knowledge. And it is specifically mentioned who has taught the writing by the pen. And what my understanding is that God is saying in the first verse that when you understand things, you can also write them for future use. With the blessings of Allah, mankind is able to save their precious advancement in many fields of life, including science and technology, history, philosophy. So this is what I think motivated people. For first 800 years, Muslim scientists remained dominant on the world scene. In every field of knowledge, including science, technology, medicine, philosophy, etc. Unfortunately, not many people knew about the great contribution of Muslim scholars to the world civilization. It happened about 20 years ago that I was speaking to a group of students, mostly from Indian, Pakistani subcontinent, and I just asked 20 students if they hear Ibn Haytham, Ibn Sina, al-Zaharbi. Only one person raised the hand and said, I think Ibn Sina was a physician, but they don't know anything about their work. I feel very sad about it. Let me just quote 3 things here. President Obama said that it was Islam that carried the light of learning through so many centuries, paving the way for Europe's Renaissance and Enlightenment. Look, that's what Muslims did. King Charles, who was prince in 1993, spoke at Oxford University and said, not only did Muslim Spain gathered and preserved the intelligence and they learn from the Greek Roman civilization. They also interpreted and expanded upon that knowledge and made vital contribution on its own in so many fields of human endeavor, in science, astronomy, mathematics, algebra, law, history, medicine, pharmacology, optics, agriculture, architecture, theology, and even music. The Muslim world acquired from China the skills of manufacturing paper 400 years before Europe. Another famous personality, Carly Fiorina, I think you might remember her as a presidential candidate. She was the head of the HEP, Hewlett Packard computer company, and she gave a speech in 2001, and she stated, Muslim civilization was driven by invention. Its architects designed buildings that defied gravity. Its mathematicians created algebra and algorithm that would enable the building of computers and the creation of encryption. Its doctors examined the human body and found new cures for the diseases. Its astronomers investigated the heavens and named the stars. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you fine, but are you still on the first slide?
Okay.
I don't see any
No,
slide.
I will go to that.
Okay.
Just to summarize, the Muslim contribution led to 800 years of invention and prosperity. It lifted Europe out of the Dark Ages and into the Great Renaissance. So that's what our forefathers did. And two verses I will further elaborate how Muslims are inspired. One is the dua, which is given in the Quran, Rabbi zidni ilma, O Lord, increase me in my ilm, in my knowledge. There is another verse which intrigued me. It is in Surah 16, verse 8. And it is He who creates horses and mules and asses for you to ride, as well as for their beauty. He will create things of which today you have no knowledge. And this is exactly what happened. In 6th and 7th century, our means of transportation were horses and mules and elephants. But what happened? In last 200 years, we have invented bicycles, automobile, trains, and even planes, and now we are conquering space. And that's what God was referring, that future you will make more progress. When Muslims conquered new territories in Byzantine, they were amazed and fascinated by the new fields of knowledge which they have no understanding, no knowledge. That was science and philosophy. They learned it, and they made great contributions. During the Abbasi Khilafat, he was very fascinated with this new discovered knowledge, and he gathered the books from all over the world, from every language, not only Greek, Latin, but also Chinese and Indian. He established a great institute, Baitul Hikmah, in Baghdad. And he hired translators from all over the world, from different cultures and religions, to translate the books in Arabic. So he collected a vast treasure of knowledge and translated everything into Arabic, and people start learning with this new fascinated discoveries, and they become interested doing their own original work. So they established great university in the entire Muslim world, from Baghdad to Cordoba, Egypt, Iran, Turkey, and Uzbekistan. And they produced great scientists, great philosophers, great historians. I don't think I have time to give the details about this because that will take another 2-3 hours. So I will just briefly mention Ibn Haytham was a physicist, Al-Razi was a great physician, Ibn Sina was a great physician. Ibn Razi and Ibn Sina's textbooks were the only textbooks available in the Western world, in fact, in the entire world, and they remain the textbook for next 500 years. Ibn Battuta traveled 75,000 miles. There was no plane, no train. Jabir bin Hayyan was the original discoverer of the basic chemical reactions, distillation, crystallization, etc. Al-Khwarizmi was a great mathematician who introduced algebra. Al-Tusi was an astronomer. Al-Zahrawi was a great surgeon who invented new instruments in year 1000, and some of the instruments were still used in the modified form. Al-Masudi was a great geographer. Ulugh Beg, who was the grandson of Timur Lenk, was a great astronomer. So we produce thousands of scholars. Some of their books are not even discovered yet. I just want to tell you that this is the first time I have collected about 25, 30 posters from India, Pakistan, different areas, and put them in an exhibit form with their photographs and their work, what they have done in University of Texas in Dallas Library. And that exhibition continued for over 1 month, 6-7 weeks, and 30,000 students, most of them were non-Muslims, got a chance to see what Muslim did in for 800 years in the so-called period of dark ages in Europe. After learning all this, I wondered what happened. Why we reach such a high status in the world? We are dominant in the field, in every field of science and technology, philosophy, any field of knowledge. What happened? Where we are now, what did go wrong? I did serious studies for almost 10 years and read several books. Most of the books mention that it was Mongolian attack on Baghdad, which destroyed the university and killed scholars, burned the books. Then the second big thing they said, it was the colonialism. There's no question, both of these factors were correct. But was that the real reason? Because I saw Germany was totally destroyed. Japan was destroyed in the Second World War. But in a few years, they gained back their knowledge. They are on the top of this technology now. So why Baghdad could have come back? So I studied in depth and I found something which was mentioned in few articles, which I referred in my book, that actually 100 years before the Mongolian attack on Baghdad, 100 years before, some Muslim ulamas said that if people study science and philosophy, especially philosophy, their iman, their faith will become weak. Therefore, there is a danger that they may leave Islam. That was the one major factor. The second big factor was that when the Abbasi Khilafat became weak, Suljah Khilafat take over. And the great Wazir of Suljah, his name is Nizamul Mulk, a very brilliant Wazir. And if you look at his history, he's regarded one of the brilliant administrators. He told Khalifa that if people read philosophy and science, they may question the Khilafat, they may want democracy, and you will lose Khilafat. That created a big concern. And he said, the government is supporting, the Khilafat is supporting many schools teaching philosophy and science, so we need to stop. This is where they stopped funding universities. But the knowledge of science did not go down in 12th century. Of course, Mongolian attack was the biggest trauma Muslims faced. But the change in the Khilafat support to the education resulted in closure of the university. So this is very important what I'm saying. By 15th century, no university in the entire Muslim world was teaching science and technology. In the meanwhile, what happened? When we lose Cordova in 12th century, the Christians took it over. They did not burn the work Muslims did. They translated into Latin and Greek. They preserved that knowledge, just like Muslims preserved the knowledge of the great scholars of Greek, Socrates, Aristotle, Plato, all of them. Similarly, the Christians preserved the knowledge given by Al-Khwarizmi, Al-Zahrawi, Ibn Sina. They translated into the language. Same thing happened, that they very fascinated, and especially they were impressed by a great Muslim philosopher, Ibn Rushd, who clearly stated that there is no conflict between science and religion. God wants people to learn science, to advance in the civilization. And they recognize that Christians were not doing that. Christians stopped teaching science in year 300 when their theologian says that anything which is not in Bible is not correct. So they stopped teaching. In fact, they prosecute the scientists like Galileo. So they said, no, there is something wrong here, and they follow the writings of Muslim philosopher Ibn Rushd and establish universities. And this is where we call the period of enlightenment came. While unfortunately Muslims burned his books, Muslims were destroying the universities, Muslims were destroying great observatories, just like you might know that the last observatory, which was built in Turkey, was totally burned down in 1580, just after 30 years of its new inauguration. So while Muslims were completely stopping teaching of science, burning the laboratories, closing the universities, changing in every university's curriculum from science to religious knowledge, and the Europe doing something very different. Now, from 15th century onward, as I mentioned to you, no university of Muslim world was teaching science and philosophy. There was no scientific work was published, most probably after 14th century, most probably Ibn Khaldun was one of the last known scholars. But we had great empires. Between 15th, 18th century, Muslims still had Ottoman Empire, Safavid Empire, Mughal Empire. They built the empire on physical strength, but did not keep the advances Europe was making in scientific and industrial development. So what happened? The result was the Muslims were, the Muslims were very behind. As a result of that, they in next 2 centuries, from 17th century, the entire Muslim world was colonized by Europeans. From Indonesia to Algeria, India, Pakistan, Iran, every nation was colonized. And they remained under colonial rule.
I don't think
for
there's any.
200 years. Now, then they started gaining independence after the Second World War. But they still did not pay any attention to the scientific teaching. Just to give the example, Pakistan became independent in 1947, and 2 years later, China became independent, 1949. South Korea became independent after the Korean War in most probably 1955. So is Taiwan and Singapore. Japan, after destruction in the Second World War, getting it. Just imagine where these countries are in the industrial development, in the scientific development, and where Muslim countries are. In fact, I must mention here that it was colonialists who reintroduced science to Muslim countries. And the sad part is that there were some progressive-minded Muslim, like Sir Syed Ahmed Khan, who tried to introduce the teaching of English and science in university, and our ulmas declared him kafir. In fact, I wrote an article and did some research work, and I found that people have gone to Saudi Arabia to gain the fatwa of kufr against him. So this is how we treated our scholars. Now, let me see what's happening in last 150 to 200 years. We discovered electricity. Electricity is just now removing the darkness, but now everything runs on electricity. Our oven, washer, dryer, vacuum cleaner, air conditioning. The big industries are running on electricity, and life become dependent on that new discovery of electricity. Look at the transportation in last 150, 200 years, how much we made progress, starting from bicycle to automobile, trains, big ships, planes, and now we are conquering space. Look at the mass communication. 70 years ago, I remember from India, if I have to call any foreign country, I have to book the phone 2-3 days in advance, and it was very hard to communicate. People didn't have any telephone, they have to go to neighbor's house. Today, with the mass communication, you can sit here on WhatsApp and you can free of charge anywhere in the world, anytime. And if you cannot attend the wedding ceremony of your close relative in back home, they can streamline on the WhatsApp and you can be part of that. Look at how many diseases we conquered. Tuberculosis, polio, smallpox is completely eradicated from the world. How much X-rays are helping us in diagnosing the new diseases. The diabetes and heart disease, which was killing people, today is easily curable. People don't die of heart disease or diabetes if they follow the doctor's orders, live up over 100 years. Advances in surgical treatment. Now, even the invention of hearing aid in glasses make life comfortable. I have hearing disability. I cannot hear without my hearing aid. So it make my life comfortable. Meteorologists are forecasting the coming hurricane. It saved thousands of lives. Robots now are making human life less fatiguing. Now science become integral part of human life. Let me ask a serious question. Did Muslim invent any of the above innovation? If not, why not? We have 1.8 billion, and I understand by 2030 we may have 2 billion Muslims, which is now 25% of the world population. However, only 1% of all scientists and 6% of scientific publications are made by Muslims. We have 25% Muslims, 1% of publication. Our GDP on research and development, Muslim countries spend 0.5%, Western countries 10%. Literacy rate is 40% in Muslim countries, 90% in Western countries. With the colonials introducing the science in the Muslim world, we produce 3 Muslim scientists in last 55 years. There were 195% Jews, which most probably have the population of under 30 million. Why? Muslims are so behind. We produce 500 scientists and technologists per million, whereas in Western countries, there's 5,000 per million. What happened if you look at 11th century and today? In 11th century, the great Muslim scholars were the product of educational cultural environment that was at its peak in Muslim world. They were inspired by Quran to explore the universe, conduct research, which led the great discoveries using detective methodology in place of the Greeks' inductive methodology. Ibn Haytham was a great example who experimented everything, and based on his experimentation, he wrote the book on optics. His great discovery was that the light, the Greek thought the light goes from the eye to the object to observe, to perceive. He said, no, the light comes from object to the eye and it perceived in the brain. That's the kind of a scientist we produced 1,000 years ago. They saw everything in this universe not as just the admiration and worship the God, but their scientific research and discovery become a religious need for them. There was no dichotomy between religion and knowledge. Their motivation was to utilize natural forces for the benefit of mankind. Why we are not using that? The great civilization produced great scholars, which I already mentioned. We are sharing, when I talk about exhibit, we are sharing that knowledge with our youngsters for one reason. If they can do it 1,000 years ago, we can do the same thing. We need to take that responsibility to train our young generation to accept this task. We need to pay attention to restore the intellectual climate that once belonged exclusively to the Muslims and we lost. Therefore, we wish to achieve the same status, we must have the same cultural environment built on both secular and religious sciences. The distinction between the religion and secular must be eliminated. So the book will give hope for the future. So it has 3 sections. One is the rise of Muslim civilization, fall of Muslim civilization, and the hope for the future. The book will give you the details about what happened and why we lost the position. The book also describes what can be done to motivate, inspire, and mentor today's youth to become scientists. The book have several chapters. Professor Basheer Ahmed has written a chapter on how to motivate, a chapter about summarizing the entire book. Mr. Aziz Badri and I put a chapter on how to motivate young children to become future scientists. And I will just take a minute to explain what we did. 2020, we had a essay contest in which 25 high school students participate, and we gave them the names of the Muslim medieval scholars. And we told them to write the essay. They searched through the Google and they wrote excellent articles. But everybody's conclusion was, we are so inspired by their work that we want to become the scientists like them. This is what we want to develop the spirit. Then in 2022, we had another essay contest where we gave the names of the current Nobel laureates, Muslim Nobel laureates, and great Muslim scientists working in many Western universities like Harvard, Stanford, Columbia. And we gave them few names, and they start searching about their work and wrote the article. They were very inspired that the Muslims are doing such a great scientific work. So this is how we are trying to inspire. Then the book also gave a article by Professor Parvez Hudbhai, who talk about Muslims' practical guide to science. And Mr. Faizan, who was a NASA scientist, started a program in Dallas-Fort Worth. It's called Discover STEM, and you can Google search. He's devoting all his time now to teach young students how to think out of box, how to develop innovative thinking, how to discover, how to bring your innovative ideas pragmatically. And I must tell you that a lot of their work is now recognized, and they are filing for what you call royalties. Then Professor Samir Iqbal, who is one of the members of the Science Foundation, has done similar programs for the young students. Basheer Naziruddin is professor in Baylor University. He put a chapter how to do the basic research. He talked about pancreatic islet cell transplant, hopefully to cure type 1 diabetes. So just like I mentioned, that the Discovery system has mentored to identify real-world problems, innovative, patentable solutions to these problems, and how to become innovator. So what is my conclusion? Muslim world has the epicenter of innovation throughout the golden age of Muslims between 8th to 15th century, which served as the foundation for Renaissance and Enlightenment in the Europe. Modern Muslim world has made very little or a simple contribution to science. More scientific literature is created in India and Spain than all the Muslim nations together. Why is that? We still not developing that kind of a climate. Islam does need a renewed scientific and philosophical vigor in order to bring about Islamic Renaissance. So this is, the book is about the thing which I just mentioned. But I like to take 5 more minutes. I usually finish by that time, but I like to take 5 more minutes because I am with a group of intellectuals and I like to learn from there some feedback so I can improve my thought process. Allah says that we never change our condition unless we first act to change ourselves, number one. Science and technology has provided humans with numerous comforts of life. Muslims should focus on scientific research and critical thinking, which is the key for scientific development. But this is what as Muslims we should do. We should integrate the strong moral and ethical values. Unfortunately, what I see in the scientific world in the Western countries, that they do not include the moral and ethical values in their teaching. That's what I think Muslims can do that. Keeping the balance between the materialistic and spiritual aspect is the purpose of human creation. That's what I learned from Quran. Accumulation of wealth should not become the primary goal of the education. Scientific development should not be developed for destructive purpose. Then the last thing I'd like to share with you about my concept of worship. In Islam, calling humanity to worship is understood as an invitation to live with Quranic guidance with a strong moral foundation. It includes rituals as well as personal social activities. The Quran says that the believers has been sent for betterment of mankind. They will promote what is good and prevent what is wrong. When we serve the creation of the God, we are serving Allah. And in my slides, I mentioned how much science is serving humanity. Can we live with any of the things I mentioned without electricity, without telephone, without cell phone, without air conditioning? Nothing. Islam is a way of life. All our activities must be modeled according to Quranic teaching, that is worship. And the last slide. Carrying out the rituals mechanically without producing any impact on personal life, human life, family life, society is not fulfilling the basic purpose of worship in Islam. Whoever relieves the human distress in this world, Allah will rescue him from the difficulties in hereafter. We can eradicate the poverty in the entire Muslim world by scientific education and industrial development. We are not anywhere near there. Why you think there is not that much poverty even in Vietnam, which became independent in the 70s? Zakat is needed, and here is my suggestion. Why not we spend half or more zakat on educating so that we eradicate the poverty rather than just supporting the poor. If feeding the poor, absolutely necessary, but can we educate the poor so that he feed the whole family? God has given humans the best gift of the intelligence for critical and rational thinking. We should use this for scientific discoveries to improve human conditions. Can it be regarded as a worship? Thank you very much for staying with me and listening to my conclusion. And I hope I will learn from your comments and your feedback. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, I'll in that case, I'll ask Professor Hassan Abbas, our guest of honor, to please share with us some of your thoughts on this subject and on the book, if you've read the book. Dr. Hassan Abbas.
Thank you so much. It's a true pleasure and honor to be with you today and to listen to this phenomenal presentation. I'm very grateful to my very, very dear friend, Amir Suleiman, who's I'm a great fan of his wit and wisdom. And of course, Dr. Aslam Syed, who is a giant. And I've been very familiar with the works and writings of Basheer Ahmed Sahib through emails, through I'm on various listservs. So I'm very familiar with his ideas, and he never fails to impress us. And that's what he did today by his very thought-provoking ideas. I'll not take more than 3 minutes or so, but I want to start with this first notion. I mean, this topic is such which touches the heart of every Muslim, because this is a big question. This is part of our conversations, our circles all the time. What happened to the Muslims? Because that's what exactly is, from the big names, from Haytham to so many others who were mentioned as the biggest big scholars and who had accomplished, whose books were used as a textbook in the West. And when I started taking notes, and I'm looking forward to read the book, I've only seen some excerpts of it. The great thing about the presentation was, I mean, I was taking detailed notes of what Basheer Sahab was saying. And on the left side, I kept a margin that, okay, these are the points maybe I will mention. And as soon as I would write a point on the left side that this is what I will add, or probably I'll be humbly will be able to add to the conversation, within few minutes, Dr. Basheer Sahab himself took up that issue. So he put his finger right on the spot. I want to start with that. And that is education, as he so rightly mentioned, from the notions of Rabbi Zidni Ilma to Ikra Bismi Rabbika Allazi Khalaq. And if I may add one famous verses which has been repeated in Quran, where whenever God wants to make an exception, he would say, in Urdu, I'll first mention, he would say, फला शख्स या फला लोग जिनको हमने किताब का थोड़ा सा इल्म दिया था. God refers to people who he gave a little bit of information from the Quran. There's so many references. So the exception was always to these enlightened people. So how come we are missing those enlightened people? And we got a, I think, brilliant response that this was basically leaving the scientific discovery method. But I think two questions that Basheer Sahab leave for us is, and he gave a brief hint to it. I'm sure there's more detail in the book. One is that it was first some religious scholars, bigoted or politically oriented clergy, who thought that this would, if the scientific or rational thinking process goes forward, it will impact their control of the Islamic narrative. And they went to the political leadership of the Khalifas of the time, who were caliphs only in name. They picked the right titles, which were Islamic sounding, but for all practical purposes, it was greed and it was political power, even in some of the empire building in the Islamic history, which was at play. And so there was a convergence of interest between a politically oriented clergy, which had historically developed a political economy of his own, and the authoritarianism. And I think that's what also point was brilliantly mentioned, because they wanted to, what Basheer Sahab said, keep us away from anything that can be democratic. So later on, my question to Basheer Sahab also is, he gave us a brilliant answer that the moving away from the scientific and rational thinking was perhaps a combination of authoritarianism versus the clerical reality. But what came first? Because if we have to start the recovery, we need to figure out, is it authoritarianism which is more damaging? So in that case, the Muslim world need to invest more in democracy. Or if it started from the clerical challenges, which in my humble view, might be more problematic, because that is where the intellectual darkness starts getting some space. It is the focus away from the intellectual pursuits and freedom of research and freedom of speech, which was very much prevalent in Islam early on, which took away. But what came first? Where, if we has to pick two issues, invest in political order, which is democratic, which is freedom to research, freedom to invest, or is it about the religious bigotry? What comes first? I think these were the 2 points I wanted to mention. But last but not the least, he has his last 2 slides, I think, were absolutely very thought-provoking as well, because he provided us the answer in there, the accumulation of wealth, and because that accumulation of wealth and greed has become a new criterion of success, and that's what we see elsewhere as well. And one point that I would like to leave you with, that I'm almost done with my 3 minutes that I promised. I think I'm over that time, which is the idea of this emphasis on ethnic, political, sectarian identities. And this reminds me of the famous verse of Iqbal from Chikwa, where he says, "Yun to Syed bhi ho, Mirza bhi ho, Afghan bhi ho, tum sabhi kuch ho, batao to Musalman bhi ho." And that sectarian bigotry and identities has forced us into that ritualistic world where ritual has become our total identity, and the spirituality and the mystical dimensions of Islam took a back route. How much is that connected? I'm sure I see Basheer Sahab smiling, because I think we think alike. So that's where I will stop. And again, I'm indebted. And one point I'll also emphasize about publications and universities. That is so true. I remember when I was in government service in Pakistan for a few years, I was in police service, and I was picked up to work with the Prime Minister. Behind the Prime Minister's Secretariat was one of Pakistan's biggest library in Islamabad. This is 22 years ago, before my American experience, American life. And looking at the library was as if you're looking at a graveyard. I still, whenever I travel around the world very regularly. In many Muslim countries, going to a bookstore is the silence of, what should I call it? The silence of the graveyard. There's no other better word. So the drift away from intellectual pursuits, knowledge, respect for your teachers and respect for the people who write, that is such a missing link. So my question back to Basheer Sahab is, it needs a paradigm change. What will trigger it? What will be the triggering factor? Back to all of you, sir. Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here.
Can I just, before I answer, can I just start? The last question I didn't hear because of my hearing problem. So on the chat, if you can just write it down, I would appreciate the last question. The other one I will respond.
Absolutely, sir. I'm writing it now.
Yeah, thank you.
Hassan Sahab, I can write it for you. I think your question was what would trigger the reversal of the misfortunes.
Exactly, sir. And especially about publications and about respect for the teacher and respect for the intellectual, which should be in the society. What will trigger that paradigm change? And all of these issues as well, but especially on that issue. Thank you.
So Rizwan Sahab, shall I answer the questions first?
Yes, please.
Okay. First of all, Abbas Sahab, I'm very thankful to you that you have a thorough understanding what I'm leading to. And the questions you have raised are very pertinent. And I will start the first one. The first question you asked was, is it the theological thing which are more important, or it's the political, like the fear of democracy and all that? I will give you my honest answer. My honest answer is theological. What happens is that still, if you look at the Muslim countries, Muslims still are practicing more religion than, that's my belief, I hope I am right, than other faiths. They are still very preoccupied, and I appreciate, admire that. But then there is a danger in it. And this is what I will explain. If theologically you say that even there is a hadith that even if the Khalifa is the oppressor, don't rebel against him. I think it's contradicting Quranic teachings. But that become very popular. And that's what the dictatorial Khalifas use that. And that is more dangerous than even talking about democracy. And they kept their Khilafat based on that. So you know that I'm not expert, neither I'm expert in Islam, neither I'm expert in theology. I can only give you the historical perspective. My understanding is that more ahadith was written about 100 years after the Prophet died, and we have very, very little knowledge about investigating the source. But it seems like they were very supportive of whatever Khalifa wanted. So that's my answer. Because if you say things, it is in hadith, then what happened? People have hard time challenging that. If you say it's a philosophical statement, people will challenge that. But hadith, they will be very cautious. So my answer is that we need to really pay attention to where the mind is changed. People in 8th, 9th centuries had an option of free thinking. They were discussing theological areas without fear of death. Today, I cannot talk about blasphemy or apostasy before somebody, I think, might kill me. But that's not right. I think we should have freedom to discuss that because it's dealing with human life. So my answer is that theological is more important than political. If we can overcome that, I think we can overcome political. One simple example I will give you, and I'm not commenting about the politics, I'm just commenting what I'm observing. The Wahhabism and Salafism is spread all over the world with the petrodollars. And they taught us that that's the real religion. Salafism is the real religion. But then Muhammad bin Salman changed everything. So he changed the Sharia. So is it the theological? No, I think it's the Khalifa. I mean, he's kind of a Khalifa in a sense that is influencing people. No, that's not right. And he eliminating the Wahhabism even from Saudi Arabia. But the rest of the country still is struggling with it. So just a point of my observation. The second thing is that why we are so much preoccupied with sectarianism. When we stop teaching science and philosophy and only the religion, then people have time to only discuss fiqh and hadith and Quran. And they were great scholars. So what they did, they started looking which sect is better than the other one. And then they were trying to prove the other sect is heretic. And as a result of that, we got so much differences within ourselves. And today, I will tell you, in one of the masajid, 20 years ago, when they were building, there was a question, who should be the members? And there was a discussion whether Shia should be member or not member and all that. Then we start defining Islam. Believe me, we couldn't define who is Muslim. Maybe if somebody can just define me, I will accept that. Because every sect thing, they are the only Muslims and they are the only one who has following the Quran and Sunnah. So that's the problem because of our preoccupation looking into those ahadiths which support them. And I do a lot of interfaith and also intrafaith work, trying to bring Muslims together. I have easy time to discuss issues with my non-Muslim Jews and Christians than Muslim friends because they become more emotional. So I'm very, very cautious. But today we cannot define who is Muslim because you're defining what I understand based on my sect. And if I'm Barelvi, I define Islam as what they follow. But if you look at that, I think you'll be surprised that the lady professor who was fired, I think she was doing less harm than our Barelvi friends proposed the same idea. So anyway, I will not go into the detail, but that's the last thing is what would trigger paradigm change with respect to book reading and research. I'm hoping people, if it raise their conscience about importance of the environment where we develop our children, should have equal time to scientific thinking, which completely non-existent. If you go to any Islamic school, definitely they are teaching good. They teach everything, character building. They start with Quran, Hadith, Fiqh, and human development. But there was not a mention that they should pay attention to the science. Why not? So that's what I'm trying to do in my book, is to raise the conscience that it is time, it's important that we need to pay equal attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. So next I would request Dr. Aslam Syed. Dr. Aslam, for your thoughts. And I see some people, I know Sami Saeed, you have raised your hand. So just hold on to that. We'll just conclude with Dr. Aslam Saeed, and we can answer the question. We can take your questions and comments. Kindly unmute yourself, Dr. Aslam.
I cannot hear.
We can't hear you. Aslam Saab, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Audio is not working.
Is it now coming?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. First of all, I have to thank Dr. Amir Suleiman, Professor Hassan Abbas for his kind words, and of course, the author and the presenter of this book. I don't know how much time they have allocated to me, but I'll make 3 points. First of all, what went wrong? Have we realized it? This book presumes that we have realized that something really terrible happened to what we were and how much we have contributed. If I trace this history of this realization, it starts for the first time in the last 2 years of 18th century. There was Mirza Abu Talib, who wrote about his travels in Europe and England and Muslim countries. And he points out that we are not doing what we used to do and we should do something about it. Then the 19th century came. We also realized many books, I don't want to mention all, Sir Syed Ahmed Khan mentioned it, so many other people mentioned these things. In the 20th century, Iqbal pointed out what is wrong with us. So many other people pointed out. And now Dr. Basheer Saab joins that trumpet bugling system in which he says, for heaven's sake, do something about it. And he has also indicated some hopes for the future. Now, it's a fascinating topic. And as a student of history, I can really take many, many hours in exploring this. But let me be very brief as possible. Why did we contribute so much when there were authoritarian rulers? Let's not forget it. In Muslim Spain, they were not democratic rulers. Abu Rihan al-Biruni's rulers were not democratic. Ibn Sina's time, there was no democracy. Razi's, there were no democracy. We have to understand how could they write and think about those things when even in the presence of such authoritarianism. The reason was they knew what causes what. Let me give you an example, and Quran is full of these things. This is my favorite example, if you could bear it with me. In the Battle of Badr, God says in the Quran that we sent angels to help the Prophet. And Muslims were victorious. Next year, another war takes place, another battle takes place between the Meccans and the Prophet at the place called Uhud. Same Prophet, more companions, more Muslims. Why were not the results same? Why were there no angels at that time? The reason was, angels, God's help comes when we abide by the rules. Prophet had laid down certain rules before he started the Battle of Uhud. Those rules Muslims violated, and the result was disaster. We do not understand that. We always think that it was all will of Muslims, it was all their faith, their prayers that led or caused the rise of Muslim civilization. It was not. It was hard work. It was living like hermits. Look at the lives of these people who made sure that human character is built in a way that they understand the relationship between cause and effect. And there are so many places in the Quran where it is mentioned, the relationship between these two. Another example, my favorite example, is that when Moses brings his people from Egypt, they have nothing to eat. God sends them manna salwa. But when they ask for cucumbers, for lentils, for other things, they have been asked to go and cultivate, use the land. What does it say? He could have sent perhaps cucumbers and lentils also from the heavens, but no. Where you have to make effort, you have to make effort. So let me summarize these ideas. What I am trying to say is that life in this world, whether it is failure or success, is because of causes, worldly causes, human causes, not because of divine causes. Secondly, if we want to succeed in this life, we have to do something like Laysa lil insana illa ma sa'a. You won't get anything except for what you make an effort. This is something that those Muslims knew. Ibn Sina was highly spiritual also, but he knew that unless he will take his students to the fields, gather some herbs and plants, he will not be able to know what causes what. And in testing one of those things, he became sick and he died. This was the determination, this was the urge of these people that did. Similarly, Ibn Rushd, many people were not happy with him, but he did, and he wrote whatever he could write. And so far, even today, if you talk to some Muslim theologians, they will say him, no, he was not a Muslim. He was perhaps some kind of atheist, or at the most, if they are kind to him, say, well, no, he was Jewish. But do we know that Ibn al-Arabi said his funeral prayers? And Ibn al-Arabi would not have done that for an atheist or for somebody who did not practice Islam. We did not understand the relationship. Reaching to God is through reaching humanity, through appreciating the things that he has created and understanding the relationship between cause and effect. Another example that I would like to give is that what we have done today, if we understand one thing, one point, if we understand the relationship between cause and effect, we will understand the reason for our fall and the reason for our rise at that time. They knew what to do, and the results will be accordingly. Today, we raise our hands and we ask God to do that. So much so that even for corruption, we ask his help. Mismanagement, we ask his help. Liberation of Kashmir, we ask his help. Liberation of Palestine, we ask his help. Has Prophet ever show me just one prayer in the Quran where God says that, okay, if you are oppressed, ask my help? No, he says, don't you hear the cries and the miseries of those people who were thrown out of their homes? Why don't you go and help them? What we have done, this is my second point, please bear it in mind and don't mind if it sounds harsh. We have started doing those things that God wanted to do or wants to do. And we have given him those tasks that we were supposed to do. He has to make us clean. He has to make us free of corruption. He has to liberate our oppressed people. He has to feed the poor. He has to make the management, the government better. He has to give us good leaders, while we will declare who is a Muslim, who is not a Muslim. We will declare who will go to hell, who will go to heaven. This dichotomy that we have created, this was God's job that we have appropriated, and the job that he has given us, we have given back to him, that you take care of all the ills that exist or are prevalent in our society, and we will take care of what you want to do on the day of judgment. Third thing, which we have to understand very importantly, all these people that Dr. Basheer Sahab, you have mentioned wonderfully, all these names that you have mentioned, we are familiar with them. My question is, did they establish any institutions, or were they only individuals? Individuals doing wonderful jobs. Did anybody, any member of the community said, let's make an institution for pure scientific research. Let's make an institution for pure medical research. Anybody, great emperors, great empires, did they do anything? At the most, if observatory was made, it was made by a ruler. And after he passed away, nobody paid any attention to that. We did not build any institutions. That's the problem. In Spain, we did. Academy of Ibn Rushd, academy of so many people, where everybody could attend lessons, where Christians, Jews, they were taught. Those institutional linkage continued in Europe, even after Muslims were evicted from Spain. They were the institutions which really made them aware of what is going on. In our societies, we created giants. Even in Mughal period, we had some people. Even in Sultanate period, we had giants in philosophy, in literature, but not in science, because science does not take that appreciative mode. If I write a very good ghazal or a very good poem, I'll all invite you and you will say, wah, wah, subhanallah, kya baat hai, kya sher kahe hain. But if I tell you that today I did this experiment, how many people will be interested in that? So we should understand this thing, that all these great individuals that we created, they were because of their own education, their own interest, not because of not because of the fact that they were educated in any institution. We only have one example of Akhwanul Safa, brethren of purity, but they were scared at that time, so they did not reveal their names. Today we know who they were. They wrote their things, which are excellent on human nature, on animals, on science. If we look at them, and even if you look at the literature, it's amazing really how much they contributed. But if you want to make a chain and if you want to make an impact, you have to put them in an institution. Those institutions will not only preserve those books, but will also cultivate some sort of genuine interest among students and amongst people. Last point that I want to make, I think Professor Hassan Abbas has beautifully said that about publication, how many books. My hobby used to be, when I would buy a book in Pakistan, I would say, they mention how many, 500 copies were printed. At the most, 1,000 copies were printed. It means even those 500 in a population, how big our population is, 500 books in a language that people understand. In Urdu, I'm talking about. They don't buy books. They don't sell books that well. Reason is lack of interest in that part of book. You write a book on sensational. I remember the book Marne ke baad kya hoga. It sold in millions. The man became very rich who had written this book. You write any book about something fantastic, life after our death, or anything else, you will see people will make money and they will write book. But if you write about the life in this world, what we need, what sorts of crops are essential for the people of Pakistan, how can we manage our water resources, how can we avoid these destructions of floods, these things, they need some thinking. And those who want to read them, for them, it's a prerequisite. It's not entertaining at all. It is reflective. And the part in the Quran which says that, don't you think, don't you reflect? Afala taqulun, kitni baar aaya hai Kalam Pak mein ye? Sochte nahi ho tum? Don't you reflect? Don't you understand what we are saying? Oh yes, sometimes God says, no, but you don't have that sense to understand why the nations before you, they were destroyed. Nobody, not even a single nation which are mentioned in the Quran, which were destroyed. They were destroyed because of lack of saying prayers or because of their faith was weak. No, Quran purely mentions worldly causes. Those causes which caused pain and misery to other human beings, they were the reasons for their destruction. If we understand that, if we understand that life in this world is with the causes which we manage and we create, consequences which we, if it is benefit, we take the benefit. If it is injurious, then we have to face. If we understand this relationship, then we will be able to be successful and perhaps revive that point. My favorite prayer is Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatum wa fil akhirat. First, we ask for this world to improve. Give me a better world than the last world. We have just made them opposite. No, forget about this world. Do whatever you want to do for the other world, not for this world. So if you're concentrating on the world hereafter, then this is what is going to happen to you in this world. You will live a life of misery, dependence, and beggary. Thank you so much, Basheer Sahab, for giving us such a nice insights into our past. Just one last thing. Civilization and power. These are two different things. Political, economic power and civilization. Civilizations never die. What happens, they become part of human civilization. So much so that whatever we have achieved in this world, they will remain. It starts as a stream, becomes a river, then joins the ocean of human world, human civilization. You cannot understand Western civilization unless you see the streaks, the little channels running through that which came from Islam. Similarly, Indian civilization, Chinese civilizations, they have all contributed to human civilization. So I wrote when this idea of clash of civilization came, that civilizations never clash. Political and economic interests clash. Civilizations never fall. Only political, economic power fall. And last but not least, you see, history has amazing facets. I went to Athens for a conference, and it was after 9/11. So the first question after my lecture, what happened to Muslims? We learned so much from you. At that time, my answer was, I was given only 5 minutes to answer. I said, I was hoping to find an Aristotle, Plato, or Socrates when I came to Greece. What happened to you? Where are they? Where have those philosophers gone who were teachers of the world in almost every field? You guided humanity on every subject. Is this the same Greece that created such giants? They were all quiet, and some of them applauded and said, yes, we never think of that. I said, it is an amazing part of history. God gives opportunity to every nation. Do something for the humanity. And when we do, it is acknowledged and it's appreciated. When we started looking only at our own backyard, then we are stuck there. And then we become, after a while, a stinking pool because we have no outlet to feed any stream or to be part of any river. So we can ask these billions of Muslims today, you want to stay in these pools? Or do you want to become a torrent? Again, like a part like Goethe has used about Islam, that a small pond became a stream, stream became a river became such a torrent that it influenced and watered all humanity. Thank you so much for being patient.
Thank you very much, Dr. Aslam. So now we'll open the question and answer session or remark session to everyone. And so what we are going to be doing is, sorry, go ahead.
Can I just respond for 1 second to Professor Syed? I think, first of all, it was really a great honor to be with these intellectuals today. And in one word, I can say that everything Professor Syed said, I subscribe to that, I write about that, but he presented in a very bold fashion, which I was not able to do. And I learned today that maybe I need to be doing that. He gave such a beautiful examples, even from Badr and Ahad, the same prophet, same angels, what happened? No, our strategy. And he continuously talked about cause and effect. Unfortunately, what happened is that we are told our destinies are written and we don't have any free will. And that's the reason, in response to Professor Abbas, I mentioned political, I don't care, it's theological. And he pointed out that all those great scholars were progressed even with with khalifas who were kings and dictators. So it's not the politics, it's the theological concept we have to, unless we change that. And problem is, that's going to be very difficult because we ingrain that this life in this world is very short. So you have to prepare for the eternal life. You have to go to Jannah. And the only way you have to go to Jannah is just blindly follow what your alim is saying. So, I can take another half an hour to repeat everything he said, but I don't want to do that because he said so beautifully about cause and effect, and even he concluded with the dua Rabbana atina fid dunya. So I think if you record it, I will like to listen once again so I can include some of his ideas in my lecture. With give him the credit. Thank you very much, Professor Syed, for this beautiful explanation. It gives me a lot of courage. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Basheer.
I think I will interfere. So what we can do is we can extend the time of meeting to 2 o'clock because looks like there are a lot of people. And after 1:30, if someone wants to leave, since the meeting was supposed to continue to 1:30, there will be no harsh feelings at all. Sorry, but I thought that if that's
No,
okay.
that's fine. That's fine. I think that we already decided that, but yeah, we can go ahead. So a couple of questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. I already see Sami, Syed, and Hamid raising their hands. So if you have any questions, raise your hand. I'm not going to be calling everybody's name. And I'll be, if you raise your hand, I'll be asking you in your turn. And I have a list of the people in the order they joined the meeting today. So I'll be actually honoring that list. So even if you raise your hand, and is there somebody else who raises after you, but he or she came before you in the meeting, so that person would be given a first chance to speak. Having said that, I would like the first person, Sami Syed, to say something about the book. I hope people have read the book, and please do mention if you have not read the book, because this makes a huge difference. I mean, instead of guessing what is written in the book, I would rather that we discuss the actual book contents. So I would ask Brother Sami Syed for his comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I am joining actually from Los Angeles, and so glad to be part of this meeting. I had a chance to read the book and had met Dr. Basheer Ahmed a few months ago, and everything he had said in his book. And today's meeting, I must say, was a great compliment to the discussion and the topic by Dr. Basheer, and particularly the most important contribution, one of the most important contribution today was from Dr. Aslam Syed, and he made the point which I was going to make, unfortunately. But the point was, I would just give an example that, yes, it was the individuals who made such great contributions, and lack of institutions, except few in Islamic Spain, were totally absent. The main difference, as one would see, is that the Urdu Ghar movement, not the university itself, which was one of the developments of the movement, but the concept of learning new sciences apart from religious studies propagated by Dr. Syed, what impact it has made in the Muslims of subcontinent over the past 150 years. Without an institutionalization of the ideas of Sir Syed, the plight of the Muslims in the Indian subcontinent today would have been vastly different. So that was the importance of institutionalization, which will only last rather than individual efforts. So that going forward, I think this becomes one of the most important points, is that whatever is done in rejuvenating the knowledge and study of sciences and philosophy, we have to work on creating institutions which will cultivate this culture going forward for the generations and posterity to come. And thank you very much. And I want all the speakers my great appreciation for adding to the discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sami Syed. I'll now ask Mr. Hamid to give his remarks or ask questions.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. Yes, I bought the book. Can you hear me first?
We can hear you fine. Go ahead.
Okay, good. So, alhamdulillah, I bought this book, and it was, to begin with, I would introduce myself. I am from Northern Virginia, and we have a group who do similar what you are doing here. We call ourselves Renaissance, Muslim for Renaissance. So this study or this type of discussion, we have it mainly every Sunday. So when I saw this book from my, I consider him as my teacher, Dr. Safi Kaskas, I just went and got the book and start reading this book. It's a great book. And I would, I mean, I can talk maybe for 1 hour, but I want to make it short and quick. So there is, according to Malik ibn Nabi is he wrote maybe about 30 books about this issue, about civilization, about Renaissance, about what happened to Muslims in life. So he was able to, because he was engineer, he was able to draw a curve. So in his curve, there is turning points. The first turning point was dictatorship. So it's actually tribalism mixed with dictatorship that changed the curve that Muslim was rising. So after Sayyidina Muhammad until Siffin, that's the first part. Then from Siffin, the Battle of Siffin, until Muwahhidin, which is Muwahhidin was in Andalus, in Spain. So after that, the decline started going down. So the second turning point I would consider is in the Abbasi second term, where there was one of the Khalifa called Al-Qadir. Al-Qadir wrote something called the doctrine, Qadiri doctrine, which is prevented intellectuals from writing and from saying their opinions, like Mu'tazila. Mu'tazila was maybe they rose in the first Abbasi, maybe last Umayyad, then Abbasid time, and I would like to add the big names, big scholars, great intellectual people that they were in that time, in the time of Abbasi, like Al-Qadi Abdul Jabbar, like Abu al-Hudayl al-Allaf, Abu Ali al-Jabba'i, and maybe others. But they were like the high, maybe mark in the Islamic theology. But now, if you mention their names to one of them regular people, they will consider them as maybe, Mubtadi' Zindiq or Kafir or something. So that's one point I want to add. Also, Ilm al-Kalam. Ilm al-Kalam is a great thing, came in the maybe Umayyad Abbasi time. And Ilm al-Kalam was started by Mu'tazila, where they defending the Islamic faith. And they wrote a lot of books, and there was like a back and forth between them and others and other people from Islam, within Islam or outside Islam, with Christian or Jews. And actually Buddhists and others, other faith too. So the issue of free will, that was maybe the main thing that hurted Muslims. So Mu'tazila believed in free will and believed in cause and effect. But the other part of Ilm al-Kalam maybe actually were against Mu'tazila. And when the Qadiri doctrine came, prevented Mu'tazila and let the door open for Ash'ira. Madrasa al-Ash'ariyya, the school thought of Ash'ira, they don't believe in cause and effect. And Ghazali, as Dr. Basheer mentioned in his book, Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali did not believe in cause and effect. And his word actually spread out in the Muslim world and actually killed our scientific revolution that was happening during our past in the Abbasi time. So that was one of the main points that, and until today, if you discuss one of the so-called ulama, they defend Ash'ari. And if you mention Al-Ghazali name, you will be attacked. And it happens with me a lot. Whenever I mention Al-Ghazali did say that. He said, no, he did not say that. They defend him, even it's mentioned in his books, Ihya Ulumuddin or Al-Munqidh min al-Dalal or other books. So that's what I just want to add, and I'm very happy to be with you guys, and I would like maybe to invite you to join our meetings, or we can join your meetings in the near future, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ahmed, for your insight. Next in my line is Talmiz Barni. Again, if you have any question, please raise your hand. So you'll be asked to for your remarks or your question. Sister Talmiz Barni, can you please also state if you have read the book or not, and whatever your remarks are?
Assalamu alaikum. I haven't read the book. I'm sorry. I need to confess. My question is for Dr. Aslam Syed. And my question is that, don't you think that, whatever is have been happening, like for 500 years in Muslim world, and the lack of academic achievements or any kind of achievements, don't you think epistemic violence is also responsible from colonialism? Is it just just not the responsibility of one nation? Don't you think it has been institutionalized and systemized against the ummah? That was my question. Another was my comment, and the comment is that I have seen like in Western literature also, I see a fear of knowledge, which is also have a biblical, connection with it. A fear of knowledge in, like, dark ages, and then in Muslim Ummah too. The fear of knowledge. I don't know why, because according to Bible, Adam is told or took the knowledge, knowledge from the tree of knowledge, and which result in angered God. So I see this, this what you say, attitude towards in Western academia, that if you limit the knowledge, especially for third world countries, they are not giving you enriching program and uranium or other areas. They are not letting you, prosper in scientific areas. I mean, this is what I think it is a part of epistemic violence. What do you think?
Well, let me give you an example again. After the Battle of Badr, the Prophet asked those who were prisoners of war that if you want to buy your freedom, you teach my companions how to read and write, and then you will be free. Now he is making those unbelievers teachers of his companions. Just look at the implications. What do you think they will teach them, or they taught them? Did they teach any art of the Quran or any verses of the Quran that God is one and this man is the prophet of God? No. It was the skill that Prophet wanted them to learn. The skill of reading and writing. These are two things we must distinguish. Content, you can put your own, but skills you have to learn. So learning is whether you learn it from non-Muslims, you learn it from colonial masters, depends, choose your learning. What will you learn? If you learn the contents, then you will become parrots, imitate them. You will be reproducing those things that they have told you about your own history, about your religion, about your country. But if you learn the skill of logic, skill of writing, skill of thinking, then of course you will put your own contents. So I don't think there is any conspiracy, because we like to find scapegoats for our own failures. Remember always this thing. What caused colonialism? History of colonialism is so unbelievable. Very small group of white men comes to Muslim areas and they occupy it. During the First World War, when they attacked Syria, you think all those soldiers were French? No, they were North African Muslims. Who did the British use against Turks during the First World War? Arabs. Muslims fighting against Muslims. Didn't they know? Didn't the Muslims know what they were doing? So we should understand that colonialism became possible because of our weakness, not because of any intellectual or other superiority of the other. Of course, then they had a chance of telling us that we have finally made you our servants because we are better in our religion, we are better in our thinking, we are better in our education. Yeah, and we have proved that yes, they have been better. We did not even think of changing our curriculum after the colonial countries left, after the powers left. We are doing the same thing. Even we did not think that thinking in our own language could be more creative, could be more innovative. No, we take great pride in learning English, and we equate the knowledge of English with knowledge. So yes, you have a point, but we have to be very careful that learning in Western institutions does not necessarily mean that we will become subservient, depending if we are learning the contents, then of course. But if we are learning the skills, then it's not possible. Thank you.
All right, if anybody has any question or remark, please raise your hand.
Can I just add a little to Dr.
No,
Aslam?
let's do the first round first, and then we'll come back to you. Let me ask others if they have any questions. All right, in that case, I have prepared some slides. And I would like to share those slides, and they're basically these are some.
Mr. Ajas has a question. Mr. Ajas raised the hand.
Who has raised the hand? Let me see. Sorry about that. Hold on. No, nobody else has raised the hand. That's.
एक्सक्यूज मी, मैं पूछ रहा हूँ कि आपने जो यू गो बाय जो पहले आए उनको पूछना है।
हाथ उठा दीजिए जो अगर
मैंने हाथ वहाँ वो उसका मुझे नहीं आता है, बट आई हैव रेज माय हैंड 2-3 टाइम्स।
ओके, नॉट दिस वे, वो रेज हैंड्स उसमें जूम पे रेज हैंड करना होता है। ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं। आपको कोई सवाल है? आपने किताब पढ़ी है? Do you have any questions?
नहीं, किताब तो नहीं पढ़ी, लेकिन कुछ सवाल हैं जो इनके अभी जो इन्होंने किया उसके ऊपर 2-3 मिनट मुझे चाहिए।
जी बोलिए।
अच्छा, डॉक्टर बशीर साहब, आपका एक जो कारनामा आपने क्या किताब लिख के, दिस इज व्हाट ए वंडरफुल जॉब यू आर डूइंग, बट यू नो व्हाट द क्वेश्चन इज, यू हैव पुट इट हियर दैट the we people or they stopped in science. So I know the reason. The reason is that we just are very proud of our ancestors that they did it so the good job. But what is that? And we are just very proud of them. We don't do anything. Like Iqbal says, थे तो आबा वो तुम्हारे ही, मगर तुम क्या हो, हाथ पर हाथ धरे मुंतजिरे फरदा हो. So we have to wake this thing up, and I have couple suggestions what we have to do. First of all, Quran must be known as not known as Muslim book. It should be a book for humanity, human being. So it should be taken care of that. And very important thing is we have so many hadiths that is so that they contradict Quran. So they follow those people, those who are controlling the religion or controlling the religious activities. They say that just do this much, do the guna, keep going. And Allah Ta'ala make tawbah. And what is that? Quran does not say that. Quran says that if you stay away from minor sins, your major sins will be forgiven, and you will be entered into Kareem gates. So what that means? It means we are contradicting Quran. So it should be stopped. So I think my suggestion is that all ahadith, which all firqa must be believed, that should be published. Otherwise, all the zaif ahadith must be taken off from the books. That's it. Another thing is main thing is for education is when people are hungry, how can they go for education? We have to stop hungry. All the rich countries, all the corrupt people must be punished for that, and everybody has the right to get food or shelter or whatever the basic needs are. So I believe in it, and I say that these couple things should be taken care of. And I think you people are scholars are there, Dr. Aslam Syed Saab, Hamid Saab, and Basheer Saab. We have to, you keep going into the public and go to non-Muslims. That's a very important thing to introduce Quran. It is not our book, it's your books too. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anybody has any questions, please raise your hand in the Zoom app. All right, then in that case, I'm going to be sharing my screen. I have prepared some slides on my remarks on the book. I am one of those who read the book completely. And I made a lot of notes on this one. And after hearing Dr. Aslam, Syed, and Basheer Ahmed and Hassan Abbas, actually it raises some more questions, and I did get some clarifications also. And I'm really glad that we have such an esteemed panel here. So let me tell you these are my observations from the book. The first thing is that this book is a very honest book. You can tell that this reflects a reflection of the sincerity and the enthusiasm of the writers. This is a bunch of articles. This is not just one writer. Basheer Ahmed is the main writer, but there are other writers in the book. And you can tell that they are very sincere, and whatever they are saying is just true to their heart. And one of the things that missed, and I didn't see it much mentioned here, is the solution. Some of the solution of the path that this book provides is one of the three institutions that I mentioned here, three endeavors, or the undertakings. One is the Institute of Medieval and Post-Medieval Studies, IPMPS. The Discover STEM, the STEM Matter programs, these are all local to DFW area, and they are really bringing change. They are actually bringing people, the young generation especially, towards science and technology, and they are providing them the path. So this is a solution. When it says if you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. And here I'm very glad to see that Dr. Basheer Ahmed has provided a solution, albeit not complete. Nobody can provide a complete solution, okay? But at least in terms of this institution, IMPMS, and then of course the other institutions like Discover STEM and STEM Matters, you have a path forward. Now, unfortunately, there are some historical analyses which are not accurate in this book, especially when it comes to Islamic creed, the theology. And I would like to discuss that. This came up multiple times in the discussion today. And there are insinuations and assertions, okay, which clearly goes against the beliefs of most of the Muslims, and we need to discuss that. One of the interesting thing is that the rise of civilization is intrinsically connected to science and technology. It seems that way, that the writers of the book have assumed that if you have science and technological advancement, then there's a rise of civilization, and the lack of it would be doomed for civilization. I've put a question mark. I'm not denying it. I'm not denying the importance of science and technology, but I don't believe that is the only thing that defines the rise of civilization. The epilogue of the book is excellent, with few exceptions, okay? There are things that I can say that I don't agree. It summarizes the issues and solutions very well. So I think the epilogue of the book is excellent. So this is in general the summary of the book. And here are some more details, and I would like Dr. Basheer Ahmed to answer those things. In the book, it has been the book portrays Mu'tazilite as a good creed and Asharite as a bad creed. Okay, it's a continuous theme. Okay, and you can see it that Mu'tazilite were good and Asharites are bad, knowing that there is no Mu'tazilite living in the world today. Okay, as such, in forms of a creed or a group or a school. And attributing the rise of Muslims to Mu'tazilite and the decline of Muslims to Asharites. This is the main theme. And then you say Imam Ghazali, is the person who is to be blamed for the rise of Asharite, who actually died in 1111 CE. But the Mu'tazilites, actually the persecution of Mu'tazilites started happening in the 9th century. And it was mentioned here in one of the talks. So this was way before the time of Imam Ghazali. So I think it's an unfair to blame Ghazali for everything. All right. And then there's no mention of Maturidi school. It seems as if there are only two creeds that exist in Islam. One is Ashari and the other is Mu'tazili. Where is Maturidi? What about the Athari, which is also called Hanbali school? Athari school is very common. Then Karamiya, they were in Nishapur. The Ismaili and the Fatimid creed and their contributions. It is so incorrect to just assume that they are Asharites who are bad and Mu'tazilites are good. All good was done by Mu'tazilites, all bad was done by Asharites, and there's no mention of other creeds. And so much so that on page 174, Ibn Taymiyyah is mentioned as an Asharite scholar. He was not an Asharite at all. It is like saying Imran Khan was a football player. Imran Khan was a sportsman, and yes, football is a sport. But Imran Khan was a cricket player. Ibn Taymiyyah was anti-Asharite. How can you say Ibn Taymiyyah is Asharite? So there are things which are incorrect in the book. It's very unfortunate when it comes to theology and religion. I do not agree. And then you, like page 74, during the first couple of centuries, the Islamic era, the Mu'tazilite followers of the Qadariya school, okay, remained the dominant force. This is incorrect. It's absolutely incorrect. First of all, I highlighted the Qadariya school, as if you are implying that everybody else was Jabariya. The Jabaris were always a minute thing which died very quickly. All the schools are Qadariya. Not just Mu'tazili, the Asharis are also Qadari. Okay, and the Ashari, the Athari is also Qadari, Maturidis are also Qadaris. Okay, they're all Qadaris. So I don't know why you highlighted this thing. Okay, the followers of Qadariya school as if they are something different. And then you say they were not, in the first couple of centuries, the Muslims were not even aware of the Greek sciences, of the sciences of the Eastern Orthodox Christianity. That came later on, and that became the Mu'tazila school. Until the time of Harun al-Rashid, Mu'tazilites were in fringes. It was during the time of Ma'mun that the Mu'tazilites got in power. All right. So when you talk about the building of the great libraries and stuff, those libraries were not a result of the Mu'tazilites. Mu'tazilites were the result of those libraries. Mu'tazilites were created because of those libraries and the research, and not the other way is wrong. And you have to be very careful in that. And then you are saying please be very careful when Baitul Hikmah in Cairo was not founded by any Mu'tazilite or Abbasis or anybody else. They were founded by the Fatimid. All right. So they were not Fatimid. Just I'm talking about an empire. I'm talking about the creed. So when the creed is being addressed, I don't think this is an honesty here. Okay. And then you forget to mention Karamiya. The Karamiya factor was in the Nishapur. All right. They were not Mu'tazilites. Okay. They hated Mu'tazilites. They hated the Ashari also, but not that much, and the Athari. But and you talk about the Nishapur people, I mean, great people like Abul Wafa al-Buzjani and Umar Khayyam. They were all from Nishapur. They were not the product of the Mu'tazilite environment. They were product of the Karamiya. So just saying that Mu'tazilites were all good and everything is being given to the Mu'tazilites is absolutely wrong. Then University of Sankore in Timbuktu, you mentioned yourself, right? It's established in 14th century. Okay, so what happened to Imam Ghazali's idea of curbing all this intellectualism and everything? I mean, you are acknowledging yourself that University of Sankore was founded in Mali. Okay, so I think this is not a fair criticism of Imam Ghazali or the Ash'ari school. And then Parvez Hood, by knowing how he is, I'm not surprised. He writes on page 134, Allah's book is about morality, not science. Well, it's a book more than morality. It's a Quran's book of guidance. This is what we believe. You may call it, maybe a secular person might call it morality, because if it were morality, 10 commandments would have been sufficient for morality. It's a book of guidance. We take Quran as a code of life. So Allah's book is about morality, not science. Parvez Hood mentioned this thing, and this is highlighted on page number 134, which is not correct. And then it goes, we go beyond, and then there is denying Sunnah. Okay. There are mentioning of things like the Nawafil prayers, okay, which are put in as excessive ritual prayers. I take offense by the word excessive. You can call them supererogatory or extra, but calling them excessive is seeing something which was not necessary. All right. And the whole tone of this thing is as if, the whole tone is if these are wrong things. Along with that, great emphasis was given from dawn to dusk to trivial Arabic praise and chants after each common daily acts. Right. So the thing is, there's nothing wrong with those acts. The problem is that the Muslims gave up science and technology. Yeah, you go ahead and do those acts. There's nothing wrong in there. But saying that those are nawafil and those are excessive, I mean, this is not the right language, and it hurts the feelings of the people, and it makes no sense. I mean, you tell them that, look, this is not sufficient, and we need to study math and sciences. right? I agree to that. Okay, so but portraying it in the whole, the tone of the book, especially Dr. Basheer, your chapters are very condescending to the traditional Islam. Okay, here also on page 86, you mentioned that we should instead of indulging in the inconsequential practice of blind imitation of his daily routines. I mean, what do you mean by inconsequential practice? Right? I mean, this is not proper. When you have a religion, you have something, you have some traditions, you need to practice those, you need to follow those. I mean, it seems this is sunnah bashing, all right? And this does not come out correct. And even if the 99% of your material in the book are correct, if 1% of the things are the Islamic bashing, it would not make sense. And I remember very well when after 9/11, Pervez Musharraf, who was then president of Pakistan, he said, and he rightly said, I totally agree, that the people in the madrasa should be taught computer science and English, right? I totally agree with that. But the problem is that people like myself, and probably you, I do not know about you, anybody in the panel, but myself, I went to to some nice schools in Pakistan, some of them. I also went to a convent school, and I got my education in Pakistan and here in US. And no place I remember getting education about Islamic sciences. So when we talk about learning the science and technology, which is incumbent upon everyone, I think learning Islamic sciences is also incumbent of everyone, which I did not get. And I feel sorry. I mean, I was indulging too much into math and sciences, and I didn't do it. And I regret it. And I should have been taught proper Aqidah and proper creed and everything. Now I have to learn all those things. So it goes both ways. Okay. And also, I mean, you are mentioning here, Dr. Basheer, that you are accusing Gulf countries of indulging in traditional Islamic theology and propagate it all over the world. What do you mean? I mean, theology is traditional. Theology you have to go back for theology. Theology is not something that you need to invent for every generation. Theology comes from, as Abrahamic religions, theology comes from up, not from down. You do not earn your theology. It's not something that you cultivate by your experiences, but it is something that is divine. As Abrahamic religion, this is how we do it. So do we need a new theology? I mean, this is absolutely makes no sense. And then you are also critical of the masajid. They're not talking about any other issues other than the heavenly issues, which is, again, not correct. It's not true for every masjid. I mean, I go to Epic and we talk about so many worldly things. There are robotic labs being conducted here. I myself gave lectures on cloud computing in the masjid, all right? We talk about social affairs. We talk about helping out people irrespective of the religion and stuff. So I don't know which masjid you're talking about, but this is absolutely incorrect, all right? Then lastly is you are also critical of the Muslim conferences that do not discuss science and humanity. I'm sorry, the research work or novel technological innovations. I mean, why would Muslim conferences discuss these things? There's a purpose for every conference. I'm not expecting a physicians conference to discuss AI, okay? Or a conference that is being done by the cloud computing people to discuss the cure for cancer. This is not their domain. The Muslim conferences are not there for these purposes, and that is why they do not discuss it. And I think there are conferences held all over the world about science and technology. So it's not that bleak. I mean, the picture is not bleak. I mean, I'm very sorry I'm being coming out so harsh. And I did appreciate that you are providing solutions, but I need to point out these inconsistencies in the book, which are not correct. Now you are also mocking Salatul Istisqa, which is our rain prayers. Okay, you are mocking this thing, which is not correct. And I would strongly suggest that if you want to put your message through, you need to be sensitive to the feelings of the others. If you do not believe in Salatul Istisqa, that is fine. That is your decision. All right, I'm not going to force my opinion on yours, but this is as a person, I can see that you are sincere to the cause of the science and technology development, and I am too. I would like to make or to point out this thing that coming out like this would not help general audience, especially if you want Muslims to read it and then you're questioning that the Salatul Istisqa would make no difference. I mean, it is Allah who makes all the laws and he can deliver miracles. So basically, are you denying that there have been any miracles in the past? Miracles with Musa alayhi salam, or Misa with Ibrahim, or miracles with Ibrahim alayhi salam, or any miracles that have happened. All right. So I think we need to keep a balance. There is a saying in Persian, Tadbir kunan banda, taqdir kunan zanda. Taqdir kunad khanda, sorry. So the man works hard and the God delivers. So you have to be very careful in all these things. Now, points to ponder. I'm very glad that somebody brought it up. That just saying that there is no democracy or freedom of speech, that is why you don't have any political, any scientific advancement. I don't think that is correct. Okay, we have examples of Soviet Union, right? And then why did the Abbasis allow it, the science and technology to develop? I mean, this got nothing to do with the democracy or the freedom of speech. Okay. Although what I believe is that you have to have some kind of a political stability. That's what the Abbasites provided. Okay. And that's what the Soviet Union provided, or what this country provides, that helps you cultivate those political science, those science and technology things. And then again, the basic question is the science and technology is only criteria of grading a civilization? We don't talk about political sciences. We don't talk about humanities. We don't talk about languages. They're all part of the civilization. Just grading them by science and technology is very lopsided. Another fabricated hadith that you have created, you have quoted here, and you quoted twice, the one that's going to China to acquire knowledge if necessary. I know it's very common in Pakistan and India, but actually this is a fabricated hadith. It's not even zaif or daif. This is a fabricated hadith. Okay. I know I've taken a lot of time. Okay, there's a lot of proofreading that needs, okay, no, this is the one that needs proofs. Now you, on page 79, you said clerics declared the use of printers as haram. I think you meant to say printing press, but you wrote printers. Okay. Actually, there's no proof to that. I do not agree to that. And I believe the biggest downfall of the Muslims was not acquiring the printing press. Okay, that was probably the key to the problems. And I think there's no proof to that. Yeah, I see Dr. Aslam Syed also raising his hand. Yeah, I'll let you speak and I'll respond because I've raised so many questions. I'm sure you have responses. And then you are saying that Muslims were fascinated with the knowledge of other lands, including China. That was on page 39. I'm not sure if that is true because China was always a country in isolation. And I would be fascinated if you can provide some proof to that. Then you also cite Abu Nasr Farabi could play his musical instruments well enough to make people laugh or weep at will. I mean, being a scientific person yourself, I would rather have some proof to that. I think these are just hearsays and these are just folk tales and should not be part of the book when you're talking about facts. Similarly, you are mentioning 500 of PhD students who graduated from India. I think there were a handful of Muslims, but you didn't mention which that's in 1 year or what. So this is kind of confusing. And lastly is a list of proofreading or editing errors or whatever. Okay, including the fact that Allama Iqbal was not a Pakistani. Okay, we clear he never had a single day as a Pakistani, and Abdul Salam is not considered as a Muslim. But other than that, I think I know I've been very critical of this book. Okay, but I've read the book completely, and I, as I said, at least Dr. Saab, you provide some solutions that others do not, and I really appreciate you for that. Sorry, thank you very much for being so patient, and I'll let you guys respond to my criticism and my remarks. Thank you very much.
Basheer Saab, you want to say something or should I say something?
No, I will let you say everything, but I can only say that I appreciate that Rizwan Saab has read every page. And of course, there are a lot of things I may not agree with him, but I appreciated that he made an effort to study and point out. And certainly, I'm not perfect. I'm human. and I must have made many mistakes. So I will get his questions later on, and I will try to respond to him. He's right here next door to me, so it will be easier to communicate. So it's all yours, Dr.
Thank you so much. Burhan Sahib, you have raised very interesting. In fact, I was waiting for something like that because that explains the situation in which Muslim Ummah is involved. If we read something that we don't agree to, there are two things. Factual mistakes, yes, they should be corrected. But interpretive, it's person's own opinion. You said that theology is divine. I beg to differ with you. Theology develops much later, even in Islam. It develops more or less more than 150 years after the Prophet has gone to the other world, because theology is interpretive. Dogmas are revealed. Principles of religion are revealed. Theology is interpretation. How do you interpret it and make it practical in your life? That is what theology is. The other part of theology is how do you make a relationship between human mind and divine principles? How do you philosophize it or make it rational? So therefore, I beg to differ with you that theology is not divine. Theology is human interpretation of whatever divine knowledge has been revealed to the Prophet. Second thing, if you trace the history of both Zillites, it will start, you will see a school run by Hassan Basri, who was a disciple of Hazrat Ali, and he took some guidance from Imam Hassan alayhi salam also. And I'm sure you have gone through this idea, how did it happen? He was teaching his class in which Abul Hudail was also there, who is considered the founder of Mu'tazilites, much before Numan Bashir and other prominent Mu'tazilites who come in later on. They heard a noise outside in the street and they asked his teacher, can we go and see what's happening? So a companion of the Prophet was being dragged in the street. When they went out, he was flogged and people were asking, we know he is a companion of the Prophet, why are you hitting? And the person who was in charge of the whole show said, if God did not want it to happen, he could have stopped us. We are doing because it is God's approval. These students come back and ask their teacher, is it true? He said, no. His exact words I translate, they are enemies of God and they lie. Then discussion started. Where does God come and where does human come? How much taqdeer, how much tadbir, as we know that. So therefore, this movement started much earlier, before the Greek works were translated and they were given to Muslims. This group of rationalists influenced everybody. If you look at Sir Syed Ahmed Khan's movement, you know, one of his beautiful essays was how many things these Mu'tazilites introduced, which in the 19th century are part of Western wisdom or thinking. The other thing that I would like to say finally about this, that it shows you have really read it very carefully. You're right, I agree with you that that hadith of China going to seek knowledge is fake, not just zaif, it is fake. But the example that I gave you of Badrs, prisoners of war, teaching Prophet's companions, that is authentic and that is true. It means learning of skills from anybody is good. The Prophet would often ask and he would do whatever he thought would not contradict with the principles of our faith and of our Islam. So I'm sure he will take care of those mistakes that you have pointed out, and especially those typos that you have pointed out. But you have clearly shown that we do not all of us think alike, and that is healthy. But one request I will make to all of you: if this book hurts the feelings of anybody, don't think that this person has done it deliberately. It is all these prayers that we say for rain and for others. Many people don't believe in them. Many people do. So on this point, if somebody will dispute that I don't believe in 5 daily prayers, yes, then you can question that person's integrity or faith, perhaps question, but not fatwa. Please, for heaven's sake, we have been through this many times. Don't do that. Mistakes, yes, should be corrected. Interpretation, if you don't like, you don't agree, tell him that, yeah, this is where I don't agree. Now, last point about Ghazali. Ghazali wrote this book, Tahufatul Philosopher, which was actually aimed at criticizing the relationship between cause and effect. Ibn Rushd answered that. Please read that book if you have not read it. Tahufatul Tahufat, Condemnation of the Condemnation, in which he points out very rationally, staying within religious boundaries, how Ghazali had made a mistake. But still, I will not hold Ghazali responsible for our intellectual decline. It was a personal opinion of Ghazali, and he also had many hats to wear. At first, he pretended to be a theologian, then he became also a philosopher, and finally, he chose mysticism, and he is remembered mostly for his work on mysticism. So these were my submissions, and I would again say, Basheer Saab, don't lose heart. You see, when we throw flowers, people accept us. Wonderful. But when some, I want to end with, if you allow me and if you have time, with, I think that is one of my favorite poems of Iqbal. We still are under the spell of taqdeer. कि इंसान की तदबीर को तकदीर खराब कर सकती है. ये सुनिए, है 5 मिनट लगेंगे. उर्दू में है, मैं सुनाता हूं, कहेंगे तो अंग्रेजी में तर्जुमा भी कर दूंगा उसका. ये नज़म थी इब्नुल अरबी की. तो डॉक्टर साहब ने इसको अपने अल्फाज में बयान किया. इसका उन्वान है तकदीर, और ये मुकालमा है इब्लीस और अल्लाह ताला के दरमियान. इब्लीस कहता है, ए खुदाए कुन फका, मुझको न था आदम से बैर. आह वो जिंदानिये नजदीक व दूर और देर व जूद. हरफे इस्तकबार तेरे सामने मुमकिन न था. ये हमारे थियोलॉजियन आज भी इसमें बिलीव करते हैं. सुन लीजिए जरा. हरफे इस्तकबार तेरे सामने मुमकिन न था, हाँ मगर तेरी मशीयत में न था मेरा सुजूद. तेरी मशीयत होती तो मैं सजदा कर लेता, वो नहीं था उस पे. यज़दा आगे से कहता है, कब खुला तुझ पर ये राज, इनकार से पहले के बाद. इब्लीस, बाद ए तेरी तजल्ली से कमालाते वजूद. अब आखिरी जो 2 बंद हैं वो सुन ले. यज़दा फरिश्तों की तरफ देखकर क्या फरमाते हैं, पस्ती फितरत ने सिखलाई है ये हुज्जत इसे. कहता है, तेरी मशीयत में न था मेरा सजूद. दे रहा है अपनी आजादी को मजबूरी का नाम. दे रहा है अपनी आजादी को मजबूरी का नाम, जालिम अपने शोलाए सोजां को खुद कहता है दूध।
Thank you.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया।
Thank you. Thank you.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। एक और इसमें इकबाल की शेर है गालिबन, तकदीर के पाबंद है नबातात और जमादात, मोमिन
हाँ,
फकत अहकाम इलाही का है पाबंद।
बिल्कुल।
तो
तकदीर को और अहकाम इलाही को हम कंफ्यूज करते हैं अक्सर।
जी जी, that's a totally different talk about taqdeer. That's a totally different topic. But I'm really glad, and I'm really glad that you were so magnanimous in accepting my criticism, Dr. Basheer. And thank you very much, Syed Saab, for explaining me some of the things. I think Hamid, you had some more question, right? You had an extra comment or question?
Just 1 minute.
Okay, so one more question, Basheer Saab. You mentioned you compared Baghdad, the destruction of Baghdad, to the destruction of Germany and Japan. I think that is very unfair, because Germany and when Germany and Japan were razed to the ground, they were built by those very people who destroyed it. Okay, all the money from the West went into building Germany and Japan. Okay, this did not happen in Baghdad. And second is that the knowledge was not removed from Germany and Japan, but that was done in the time of the attack on Baghdad. So I don't think this is a very fair comparison.
One point I want to make, आप उर्दू घर की एक्टिविटीज के बारे में कुछ कांटेक्ट ईमेल वगैरह हमें भिजा दीजिए, और मुस्लिम रेनेसांस के जो साहब थे, I think his information, if he can make that available, this will be good for people who are not in the area.
Sure, we can give you the information. अभी मेरा सवाल अभी कर दें, उसके बाद जरूर आपको बता देंगे। समी साहब आपको will answer both the questions. So Basheer Saab, I mean, don't you think this is an unfair comparison between destruction of Germany and destruction of Baghdad?
Let me just make a closing remark. Everything, Rizwan Saab, you mentioned, need discussion, need explanation. I don't think I have one-line answers for that. I think Dr. Aslam explained beautifully, and I have more to say on that, but this is not the occasion. Maybe we can take, because each item need a 2-hour discussion. Even comparing Ashariya's and its influence in today, that's the one thing. I agree many things which you point out the mistakes, and I will correct it. But one thing I will stick, that I think Ashariya thinking has done more damage. I mean, that's my personal belief. I'm not challenging, but I believe in it. I think Mutazilites try to inculcate the freedom of thinking. That's where the progress is made. Certainly, I think I do not want civilization. I totally agree with you. The definition of civilization is not limited to scientific, everything included in it, but it requires a lot of discussions. I was taking one point, and remember, I just wrote a book. You talk about hundreds of things in it. It requires 10 books. And most probably, I will ask Dr. Aslam Syed to write the next book on this based on your questions. Exactly. And I'm sure he will do that, and he will do a better job. So I will conclude by saying, I appreciate Rizwan Saab what you said, because it gives me something to think about it. It raised my conscience, just like I told Aslam Saab that he make me little bit, give me some confidence to be a little bit more brave and speak more openly, which he did. So I will do that, and I will answer your questions, and I will correct my mistakes. So thank you very much. I learned from everybody a lot, and I need some email addresses of Aslam Saab and Hassan Abbas Saab, because I need to keep in touch. And of course, Hamid Saab, I will be in touch with you, and maybe we'll have some joint meetings on Zoom. We have an Institute of Medieval and Post-Medieval Study.
Right.
Right. Job. Thank you very much. So we can start.
I appreciate your candor, and thank you very much, Dr. Basheer and everybody else. So let me introduce we didn't mention it. The book is the 250 pages or so, And this is available on Amazon. I got it for just $10 with a Kindle copy, but you can get a paperback copy also. And there you'll have all the information of the writer, Dr. Basheer Ahmed, who's talking about Renaissance. Again, I need to emphasize, which has not been emphasized enough, are the 3 organizations in DFW area, the IPFMPS and the Discover STEM and the what's the third organization? That
matters.
Yes. So we need to appreciate those efforts, as I mentioned, that STEM Matters, Discover STEM, and the IMPMS, because they are providing a solution. They are providing us a path forward. This not be a complete path, but they are doing a great job. So we appreciate that. If Dr. Saab is okay, we can give his phone number also.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can put in the chat the phone number. You can get in touch with him. And Dr. Basheer, if you look at the WhatsApp group that we created, you can exchange your email addresses with Hassan, Abbas, and Aslam, Syed on that.
Yes.
And with that, again, so somebody asked us about getting in touch with the Dr. Basheer. Okay, let me give you his phone number. Dr. Sir, what is your phone number here? Can we give you a phone number here?
Yeah, 817-907-6080.
917-907?
817-907-6080.
Oh man, I messed up. Sorry, I was keeping gap. Sorry. Did anybody get it?
So I think we will maybe I will contact you to get everybody's email address, and I will be in touch. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes. Thank you very much. And Dr. Abbas, if it's your permission, sorry, Dr. Aslam Syed, can we conclude this meeting and discuss something, a question about Urdu Ghar?
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead.
Okay. So